I don't know what led me to taking this trip, but I woke up one morning thinking I'm tired of the bullshit in my life and need a vacation. So, I packed my suitcase with the bare necessities, called my job and told them I'm taking the week off, and on top of that made sure that my friend was available to house sit for me in the time of my absence. With everything tied together, I hit the road. I must have drove for an hour before stopping to get something to eat at this little roadside diner. Upon walking into the diner, I could tell it had been around for a long time. The waitress behind the counter welcomed me to sit wherever I would like, and she would be right with me. As she walked over, I could tell she must have been tired because it was several times she tripped over her feet. The final trip she almost fell on my table, but I caught her just in time. She apologized, adjusted herself and asked me what would I like to drink while handing me a menu. I ordered a root beer float and reassured her I knew what I wanted, which was a bacon cheeseburger fully dressed with French fries. She winked at me and told me she got it and said it will be at least 10 to 15 minutes before my order will be up. I sit observing my surroundings. I see a lot of truckers and at least 2 couples that must have had their stomach growling too. I attempted to text my friend to check on her, but there wasn't a signal. I guess I'm more further away from civilization than I thought. Alone with my vices, I had no choice but to think about the fact that I have been single now for a little over 2 years. Didn't see the point in getting into another relationship after being cheated on by my ex-girlfriend for the whole duration of our relationship. I still can't believe she had the nerve to do this shit in our house, in our bed, but I should have known that she wasn't right for me when we argued over lifetime goals I had for myself and realizing the only goals she had was to live off of me. But that was a mistake that I quickly corrected, which I guess led to her cheating with her so-called bestie. In the midst of daydreaming about that, I didn't realize how much time had went by because here was the waitress bringing my food to me. Before walking away, she asked if there was anything else that she could do for me, in which I responded, "No, I'm fine, thank you." As I bit into my burger, I couldn't help but to moan, damn, it was so good and juicy. These roadside diners are truly a lost gem in history. It seems as if I swallowed my food because here I was paying for it and leaving a tip just to jump on the road and continue my spontaneous adventure. I swear I had been driving 2 hours before the itis started kicking, and luckily, I came across this sign that said 5 miles until Forbiddenville. I thought to myself, what type of name is that for a city or small town? It seems like it took forever, or either I was just that sleepy, but finally I made it to Forbiddenville, and upon exiting the ramp it was
pitch black around the curb, but shortly thereafter it was like a parade of lights of every color. In my head, I was excited yet wondering what in the world? I came across the first hotel in sight, which was flamboyant to say the least. I parked my car in the visitor space and walked into the office, in which I was welcomed by the tallest drag queen I've ever had the pleasure of meeting. Of course, she asked how could she help me. I asked if she had any rooms available for the night. She responded, of course Sugarfoot, what them would you like? Looking puzzled, she could tell it was my first time there, so she explained that all the rooms there have themes from Mardi Gras to BDSM, but I opted for the ocean room. After filling out the paperwork, she reached me my room key, which was in the shape of a seashell, and gave me directions to my room. I jumped in my car, found the building that looked like the ocean, and looked for room 111. On the way to my room, I saw what looked like a pool, and lounging by the pool was a group of dread-headed studs in beaters and swimming trunks. Upon scoping out the scene, me and the tallest one locked eyes. I licked my lips and she nodded her head. I waved as I disappeared into my room. As I closed my door, my heart started racing. I never seen a woman so sexy before in my life. She was just my type, tall, dreads, and a little muscular. I started wishing I had brought my swimsuit. Oh well, let me go take my shower. In the shower, I had daydreams of the mystery stud being there with me. I found my hands wandering between my legs, stroking my engorged clit, imagining that it's her. As I exploded, I pretended that my finger was her tongue. I bite my lip, shook my head and turned the water off. It was at that moment when I heard a knock at my door. Part of me secretly hoped that it's her. As I step out the shower, I'm composing myself, trying to control my breathing before opening the door. I yell, "Who is it?" A voice says it's Sean. I peep through the peephole and to my excitement it's her. I almost dropped my towel when I realized it. Keeping my cool, I ask if there was a problem. She says that hotel management sent her to give me a voucher for dinner. As I looked again, she was holding it up to the peephole. I cracked the door just little to receive the voucher. It was at that very moment that we locked eyes again, and I realized that her eyes are the color of amber. She asked me my name, in which I told her Regina, so she said that's a beautiful name, and proceeded to tell me dinner starts in an hour and she would be back to escort me there. I in my flirtatious nature told her who said I needed an escort, in which she replied I did, biting my lip. I said, okay, well, as my escort you better not be late picking up.
Which you chuckled, I never come when you want me to, but just know I will be coming. Then walked away. I quickly closed the door and pulled out my summer dress that clings to every curve I own, did my hair then my makeup. As I was strapping up my heels I heard a knock at my door again. I looked at the clock and realized an hour had passed and she's on time. So, I tucked my room key into my bra, opened the door, to which she was standing there with her dreads braided back, looking good in what must have been a custom-made suit. She extended her arm, in which I tucked mine into it, and we proceeded to the dine hall. As we walked in it felt like I was at a wedding reception, how well things were put together. As I skinned the room I see the other women from the pool escorting, who I assume must have been the other guests of the hotel. She lead me to where everyone is mingling, introduce me, and I don't know why, but for a quick second I felt like they were undressing me with their eyes. I spoke, then quickly excused myself to go explore things further. I walked around, saw that they had an open bar which looked like they were serving Bloody Marys, and then across the room was a buffet-style table. I proceeded towards the food table, then Sean stepped in my path, reaching me a glass of Bloody Mary, saying I should taste it because the bartender outdid herself. I declined because I don't believe in drinking on an empty stomach, but I took the drink as not to be rude. She showed me where she would be sitting if I wanted to join her, in which I would. I made my plate, made a beeline for her table. She saw me coming and pulled out my chair. She asked how did I enjoy my drinking, in which I reassured her I haven't tasted it, but I'm sure it's wonderful. I don't know why, but she seemed to get an attitude about it, got up and walked away, which confused me. But I shrugged it off, made small talk with the other guest that was seated at our table. Right when I finished eating, Sean showed up, took my plate, took my drink, and brought me a fresh one. I sipped it as she stared at me closely, smiling almost sinisterly. She sat next to me and whispered in my ear that the drag show was about to start. I was excited, considering that I've never been to a drag show before. So, I started sipping more of my drink as the show started. First the strobe lights started swirling. Then the first act came out, dressed all in black, looking somewhat like a dominatrix, lip-syncing Permission by Ro James. The more the lights swirled, the hotter my body got, and I started feeling slightly dizzy. I leaned over to tell Sean I didn't feel well and needed her to walk me back to my room, which she quickly jumped up and helped me. We said our goodbyes to everyone and proceeded to the exit. With each step I felt even more lightheaded. I almost fainted when Sean picked me up and carried me back to my room. I handed her my room key so that she could gain access to my room. She opens the door. It seems as if as soon as she laid me on the bed my body felt on fire. I couldn't breathe at all. Through breathing sessions I realized that she was standing at the end of the bed undressing. I asked her what was she doing. She replied, only what you want me to. Looking puzzled I asked, what exactly do you think it is that I want you to do? She smirked and said, I saw how you looked at me when you checked in, so the daydream that you had in the shower I'm about to make a reality. Wait a minute, how did you know about my... Before I could finish my sentence, she was face first between my legs. I couldn't comprehend what was going on. All I do know is the more she kissed, licked, sucked and bit my thighs, the cooler my body felt. It was at that moment she stopped everything she was doing and told me to say yes, which I asked to say yes to what. In between kisses she said, say yes to always being with me. Body going from hot to cold and back to hot. I said yes. It was at that moment I watched her eyes change from amber to red, and then I felt a sharp pain in my inner thigh, then a rush of pressure, then a release. I swear I felt like my body would implode, all the energy surging through it. I tried to push her head away because the more she kissed that spot the more I felt as if I would never stop feeling the pain I felt. Then she finally moved from that spot that was sending my body through a frenzy. She then got up. It was in that moment I saw the blood dripping from her lips. I went to scream but nothing came out. It was then that she said, I know you're scared, I know you have questions, so let me say this. Yes, I am a vampire. Yes, I deceived you, but you said that you wanted me. I heard your thoughts. You wanted a love that would never leave you, and I can promise you that. I jumped up, ran to the bathroom, locked the door, looked between my legs, and saw 2 puncture wounds on my inner thigh. I couldn't help but to cry, because does that mean that I'm like her now? This would be the second woman that I allowed to deceive me. Now question is, what do I do now? She knocks on the door and asked me to come out and talk to her. I opened the door and surprisingly she had tears in her eyes, but I didn't care. I brushed past her, sat on the bed. She kneeled before me asking me what could she do to make me stop crying. I said, can you change me back, which she of course can't. So I asked her the million-dollar question, which was would I be able to leave, which from the look on her face further let me know that I couldn't. I started crying harder. She pushed me back onto the bed and started to kiss the lips below my hips, and as badly as I wanted to push her off, I don't know why, but that feeling she was giving me felt like a never-ending coming session. Before I knew it, my tears of sadness turned into moans of passion. My body was back on fire, but more in a sexual nature. I never came so much. She stood up, looked deep within my eyes, and told me she waited for me. She dreamt of me. It was at that moment, for whatever reason, I found peace and serenity in her words. I found comfort in her embrace. As we made love until the sun started rising, I laid upon her chest, a chest that I will never hear a heartbeat out of, and smiled, thinking to myself, I checked in, checked her out, and now I've found an eternal happiness that will be everlasting in a hotel, in a town called Forbiddenville.